way that I piece them together is, I've not got the March one finished, but let's pretend this is March, January, February, March. And what I will do is I seam up here and up here, so I've got strips. So I'll have January, February, March in a strip, April, May, June in a strip, and then I will seam them along here. So I make strips of 3 and then seam those strips of 3 together. The principle of seaming them together is the same for all of them, so I'm just going to show you with these 2 blocks here. I've got January and February. So what we do to start off is we first of all we thread a tapestry needle with a good length of your border yarn. Don't knot it or anything like that. And we go into, first of all, to start off, we push our needle into the very first kind of stitch that you've got right down here. Pull it through, leave a tail, and then go back through just to secure that again. And obviously you weave all these tails in at the end. Okay, so that's our yarn attached to the left hand square. We then go over to the right hand square and again go in the very first point there that you can see where the first stitch is and pull it, but don't pull it completely tight at this point. Now this particular block, we've got the garter stitch going in 2 different directions that we're joining. So I'll show you how I join that, and then we'll move on to where it's a bit simpler, where you've got the same, basically we've got vertical garter stitch here and we've got horizontal garter stitch here. But the principle for seaming them together is the same really. So what we're going to do is we're going to work into the sort of gap. It's not really a gap, but you know what I mean. This line here is where we're going to go in and pick up the stitches, and on the horizontal garter stitch you just kind of go into that first edge bit where we've been picking up the stitches. Do you know, if we were picking up the stitches on here when we're knitting a square on, you're going into that same point really. So we bring our needle across and we go down through the point of where your yarn is coming out, and then you will see there's naturally a point where your needle comes up and you will have 2 loops on your tapestry needle. Can you see that? And pull through. And again, don't pull it tight at this stage because it's just easier to show you. We go back across, down through that same point again that we came out of, and this time you've still got 2 loops, if you see. It just looks slightly different because we're at the end of a horizontal garter stitch instead of vertical. But we're again going through 2 loops. Pull through. Back across to the other side. Through the 2 loops again, can you see there? And pull. And then over to the other side and exactly the same thing. Down at the point where we were, and through 2 loops there. And then I'll show you what happens when we pull it tight. So I mean this is quite fun really. I always do a few stitches and leave them kind of loose, and then when you pull on your yarn it just zips it up. Can you see how that zipped it up? I think that's really fun. And to carry on I just kind of pull my work apart a little bit just so you can see where, you know, where that yarn is coming out of. So we just carry on like that, and I'll work up to the point of where it changes to the vertical stocking stitch. It is sometimes a little bit more tricky working this side, just finding 2 loops. I mean, don't worry if it does get a bit off, don't worry too much, you know, it will all work out. You know, these things don't have to be completely precise, do they? You know, it's a handmade thing, and don't worry too much, you know, if it's not perfect, because at the end of the day it's a blanket and nobody's really going to be inspecting your seams, I don't think. But obviously I know we like to get things as neat as possible. So I'll just work my way up to the point there where it changes to vertical. Just give that a little zip. Zip, zip, zip. And that's always fun doing that. Okay. Now, it now gets easier, I always think, because you're working same side to same side here. So exactly the same principle, just let me find where my, there it was, where my yarn was coming out. So over to the other side, and it's just the same now. We're just going through 2 bars, loops, whatever we want to call them, on that side and across, and through 2 on that side. And I think it's much quicker now that we're working same kind of edge to same kind of edge. It's much quicker, and we just now work our way up, and every, I don't know, half dozen stitches or so, just give it a little pull to tighten everything up, and there we go. So you just work your way up, zipping it up if you like, to the top, and then when we get to the top, you know, if you do find you're a little bit off, I always have a look when I get to maybe this point. If, for example, you're a bit like that, where you think your edges are not going to line up, you can do a bit of jiggling, you know, go through 2 stitches, for example, on one side and only 1 on the other, just to even it up, so that when we get to that point they are in line. So there's always a way to kind of jiggle it a little bit to make it right, you know, to make it look right for when we get to the top. So seam all the way to the top, and then do that, you know, go over to this block, do the same there, and then you'll have your 3 blocks in a row, and then all you do is you would have 3 blocks here, 3 blocks here, and you would just seam all the way up to finish your blanket. Easy peasy really. I mean, it takes a little bit of time to do the seaming, so that's why you might want to do it a little bit at a time. You know, when you've done 3 blocks you might think, oh, I'll seam those together now, so that you're doing it all in stages and it's not quite so daunting.